and welcome to Conversations in the Kitchen, where we try to tackle some hot button nutrition topics. Joining me today is Dr. Eleni Nackos from New England Cancer Specialists. Dr. Nackos was born and raised in Los Angeles, California. She earned her medical degree from Drexel University in Philadelphia. And after completing her internal medicine residency at Tufts Medical Center, she received specialized training in hematology and oncology as a fellow at New York Presbyterian Weill Cornell Medical Center in New York City. She joined New England Cancer Specialists in 2016, and I am guessing that some of the people in our audience today have actually met Dr. Nackos. She's board certified in medical oncology and specializes in breast cancer. So Dr. Nackos, welcome. It's so great to have you with me today.
Thank you. It's so good to be here. Thank you for inviting me. Hello to all the cancer survivors out there. I bet I do know a lot of you, and for the rest of you, it's nice to meet you virtually. But I'm really looking forward to talking about nutrition today because, as we know, that's an issue very important in the cancer care arena.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, food is medicine, right? Food is kind of an adjunct to eating good food is kind of an adjunct to your cancer treatment.
Cancer treatment and for overall health. And I know many of us have a lot of questions that hopefully we can help answer with your expertise today as well.
Great. So what we've been doing, this is part of a 4-part series called Conversations in the Kitchen. And our hot button topic today is carbohydrates and sugar. But before we get talking about carbs and sugar, we always try to do a little bit of a recipe. And today's recipe, because we're going to be talking a little bit about sugar, is actually a dessert. So, you know, at the Dempsey Center, we don't do a lot of desserts, but every once in a while we pull one out. We try to keep them pretty healthy. So today we're going to be making an avocado chocolate pudding. And we've got dueling blenders here. Dr. Nackos and I are both going to be making this recipe so that we can taste test. Oh, look at that.
Blender and ingredients are ready. I am jazzed about making this avocado chocolate pudding.
All righty. So I have got my recipe, my ingredients over all set up here as well. So as we're putting stuff into our blenders, I'm going to be talking a little bit about our ingredients. So the first one that we're going to start out with here is a ripe avocado. Now, if you haven't used avocados very much, when you're at the grocery store and trying to pick it out, you just want to give it a little bit of a squeeze and almost like a tennis ball. And if it has a little bit of give to it, that's a good indication that it's ripe and it's ready to go. If it's hard as a rock, it's okay to buy it, but I would just leave it on your counter for a couple of days and let it soften up a little bit and you'll enjoy it a lot better. So when you're cutting an avocado, I just take a serrated knife or a sharp knife, and there's a big pit right in the middle. So I just pour all the way around the pit, and then I just twist it and pull it apart. And then if it's a ripe avocado, you can scoop it out. What I like to do is I just cut it in quarters and then just peel it. It can peel, if it's ripe enough, it will peel very easily, and we can pop it right into the blender. Now, avocados are a food that, you know, they have a reputation of being a high-fat food, but the type of fat that you're getting from avocado is a plant-based fat. It's full of what we call monounsaturated fat, which is really quite good for you. It has anti-inflammatory properties. And it, you know, the monounsaturated fats have actually been shown to help lower cholesterol and therefore reduce risk of heart disease. So while you do need to be a little bit conscientious about the amount of avocado that you're eating because of the calories, don't worry about the fat because it's a good one to be including in your diet. So we've got a full avocado in here. And then I'm going to add a quarter of a cup of unsweetened cocoa powder. So this is just Hershey's cocoa that you can get at any grocery store. I'm a little bit partial to dark chocolate, so this is a special dark unsweetened cocoa powder. It's a good way to start. It gives you the opportunity to add sugar in the amount that you like. So the sugar in this recipe, you know, part of what we like to do is encourage people to eat sugar as close to its natural form when you are having it. So honey, maple syrup, agave are all good sources of natural form of sugar. Dr. Nackos, what are you using for your sugar ingredient?
I decided to go with honey. I was on the fence about adding a banana, but I think you might be doing that on your end. But I'm using just pure honey, Maine honey.
Nice. And I have done this recipe using maple syrup, and that is divine as well. So what I did was I cut the honey in half. So I'm putting 2 tablespoons of honey in here. And then I'm going to add a half a banana to add the rest of that sugar component. And, you know, really you can go either way. But by adding the banana, you're adding a little bit of potassium, and that's an important nutrient to have. It puts a little bit of fiber in it. Not really enough to call it a high fiber food, but there's some nutrition benefits there. And then we've got a little bit of vanilla. So I don't do a lot of measuring. I'm just gonna put about a half a teaspoon here. And then you're gonna need some kind of milk to get your blender going. So I'm just using whole milk. You can use whatever kind of milk you like. If you're intolerant to dairy or you choose not to consume it for whatever reason, you can use almond milk, you can use oat milk, hemp milk. There's lots of different options.
Judy, I'm using extra creamy oat milk today.
Very nice. I love the oat milk is really a nice one too, because it has a little bit more protein than some of the alternative milks. So I like that one. And I've just got regular whole milk. And that's about it. So there's no cooking with this recipe. You can eat it right when it's finished. But we're gonna get our blenders going, and so we won't be talking while those are whipping this up. It might take a couple of, need a couple of tries and have to scrape down the sidewalls a little bit. And actually, I'm realizing that with the substitution of banana, you'll probably need a little bit more of the liquid component. So just keep that in mind. Whenever I'm blending, I always try to start at the lowest level. And then once it kind of starts going, you can crank it up a little bit more. And so just kind of keep an eye on it. If it's not blending very well, you don't want to go overboard on the liquid just because you're going to end up with a thin pudding. But you might have to just mix it up a couple of times in the process. Everything working okay on your end?
Everything's working here.
Awesome. I'm adding a little bit more milk.
I think that's a good idea. Mine's pretty thick. Smells really good.
Right down, and I think I'm going to be in business over here. Just a couple of lingering chunks. So just gotta keep at it a little bit. I'm not gonna add any more milk just because it's at a good pudding consistency at this point. How are you doing? You all set?
I think I'm good. I'm looking forward to tasting it. It's pretty thick, but I like it that way.
Mm-hmm. I'm good to go too. So we are going to save our taste testing for the end of our conversation. So let's start out just kind of in general talking about carbohydrates. From a nutrition standpoint, we get carbohydrates from a lot of different foods. We get it from all the different grains, starchy vegetables. All vegetables really have some carbohydrate. Fruits are a great source of carbohydrate. And then you've got a lot of different, pastries and sugary foods that are sources of carbohydrate as well. So I would love to hear you just talk about the role of carbohydrate in human metabolism and, why it's important to include it in your diet.
So I see a lot of fear of carbohydrates. Over time, there have been different diets promoted that are low carb. And I think it's really important to go through the differences in carbohydrates because some carbohydrates are better for us than others, and they're not all the enemy. The sugar carbohydrates, we should really consider taking those in moderation. But we do need fiber in our diet, especially for good gut health. We need vegetables and fruits, and these are all carbohydrates as well. So all carbohydrates are not equal. And these are an important part, especially for cancer patients. I really want you to increase your plant-based food, your fruits and vegetables. And the way to do that is through carbohydrates.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you. I would just add to that, when you're choosing good quality carbohydrates like whole grains and whole fruits and vegetables, not only are you getting carbohydrate, which is an important energy nutrient, right? People in this cancer community are pretty fatigued. And so carbohydrate in your diet is something that can actually help optimize your energy level. And those carbohydrates, especially the ones that we get from fruits and vegetables, carry with them so many other protective nutrients that just kind of help your insides work the way they're supposed to work.
And Judy, also, I really talk to my patients about looking at labels because there's a process of refining the products that we eat, such as bread. That's all the grain and the whole grains have been taken out, and the white bread products are more like a simple sugar. And so you want to really try to, for your breads or your fibers, look for whole grain products. There's also things like barley, beans, legumes that are an important part of the diet as well.
Yeah, the legumes are such an important part of your carbohydrate intake. You mentioned fiber and fiber being good for your gut health. Fiber is what kind of helps things move through your GI tract. But in addition to that, most people are aware of that, but in addition to that, fiber serves as a fuel source for probiotics. So the natural bacteria that are supposed to line your GI tract and have some pretty good immune properties and some protective properties to us, use the fiber that we eat as a fuel source. So they will replicate and stay at healthy levels in your gut if you are giving them fuel, which is fiber. So important to have the carbohydrates in the mix for a lot of reasons.
It's a good point. You don't want to take a probiotic and then not give that new bacteria some food. You won't get the most benefit out of the probiotic.
Exactly. So, one of the questions that I get all the time, and I'm sure that you hear it all the time as well, is people will ask me about sugar. And they will say, you know what? I've been reading it on the internet and my friend told me, and, sugar feeds cancer, right? So I shouldn't be eating any sugar. How do you address that? Do you feel that that's true? Do you feel like sugar for a cancer patient is different than sugar for someone who doesn't have cancer?
Well, all carbohydrates eventually are processed and broken down into sugars in our body. But I do agree that things like processed candies aren't the best for us, but that's why we're showing an alternative. You can still have dessert, and it's the types of sugars that you eat. I don't want my cancer patients to feel so deprived that they can never have a sweet or never have something like pudding, but it's making choices, and hopefully this provides some educations on which are the healthier choices so you can enjoy sugar and not feel like you're putting yourself at risk for cancer and cancer recurrence.
Yeah, that's great. There are lots of different ways to make healthy little sweets, and we actually have a little recipe file on the Dempsey Center website that we hope to grow over the next couple of years that includes some good dessert recipes that have some great healthy ingredients that people might enjoy. So feel free to check that out. Anything you want to add to this conversation about sugars? I think the point that you made is that not all carbohydrates are created equal.
Yeah, and I just think that for your overall health, even besides just for your cancer care, you want to protect your cardiovascular system, you want to try to prevent diabetes. So I'd rather you eat avocado pudding than reach for the Kit Kat or something that is full of preservatives and other things. So I really think this is going to be beneficial. And if you have other desserts that people can look out for, I think that they can add that to their diet and still feel fulfilled, and that they're still having some joy. And because eating is a joy, right? This is part of quality of life.
Absolutely. We all like to eat, and eating is something that we have to do every day. We have to do it every day. So making the best choices possible is a good way to go. And when you're thinking about your carbohydrates, think about the ones that are gonna, help your insides. As I said before, your body is a great big old biochemistry factory, and you've got to put the right chemicals in to help it work the way you want it to work and just to optimize your health. So good carbs are the way to go. So we've got some great pudding that we're gonna sample here.
Yes.
Mine is a rich dark chocolate, which is just the way I like it. Chocolate, actually, cocoa has some great nutrition properties. The darker, the better. The darker, the higher the concentration of nutrition. But we're going to doctor up, recipes are guidelines. For any of you in the audience that have been to some of my classes, I always say recipes are guidelines, and you can kind of add a little bit of this, add a little bit of that to make that food taste the way you want it to taste. So we're going to try the pudding straight up, but then we're going to try some little additives for you. Oh boy, this looks really good.
Great. It's thick and rich, smooth. It's very good.
Yeah, very good. So on the recipe that you guys will be able to access on the website, you're going to see that there are some little spices. Spices actually add some really protective nutrients to the diet as well. But one of the things that really helps spruce up this recipe is a little pinch of salt. It's like, when you have a dark chocolate bar and it has a little bit of salt in it, that's what salt does for this recipe. So now we're going to try it with a little pinch of salt mixed in and let you know how that changes the flavor.
I like that.
Yeah, did it change it in any particular way for you?
It gives you the sweet and salty and gives you just a different hit on the tongue. It's really good.
Yeah, when you think about your taste buds, there's an acid taste bud center, a salt taste bud center, and a sugar taste bud center. So by adding just a little pinch of salt, you're hitting two of those centers, which really does spruce it up a little bit. And so then for me, I'm gonna add a little bit of chili powder. Now that might seem a little bit weird to you, but if you look at recipes, oh, my chili powder hasn't even been opened yet. When you look at recipes that have cocoa in it, it is actually very common to combine a little bit of chili powder with that. They just work together quite nicely. So I am gonna just sprinkle a little bit of that in here.
And I'm gonna add some cinnamon to mine. I'm gonna go a different route.
Nice. I didn't add quite enough, so I'm adding some more right to my bowl. Which is great because if you're making this and sharing it with other people, everybody can kind of spruce up their pudding in any way that they like.
And I'm adding some raspberries to top mine off.
Oh, lovely. You gotta put that right up to the camera.
Just get a shot right there. My pudding with the
that.
raspberries, and I actually blended the cinnamon in. It sounds like I could have just sprinkled it on top.
Either way, I think is fine. I don't have those beautiful raspberries, but here's my nice rich dark chocolate pudding. Goes down really smooth. So for anyone whose mouth isn't feeling that great, it doesn't, you know, it's not irritating.
I'll tell you something, with the cinnamon, the raspberries, and the salt, it totally changes it. It is so good.
Divine. Now it's like we're having dessert before our suppers here.
Well,
Which is perfectly fine. So there you have it. Good quality carbohydrates. It's the name of the game. Enjoy your desserts in small amounts. Use good ingredients, but enjoy the heck out of them.
I second all of that.
Awesome.
Enjoy.
Thank you, Delaney. It's so nice to have you join us.
It was so nice to be with you today, virtually.
We're hoping it's going to be in person pretty soon.
Maybe next year. I'll be there in the kitchen with you doing this live.
Awesome. Thank you. Have a great day, everybody. So long.